RJ PASIN? I didn't mess that.
Mason.
PASIN. Okay, of course I would mess that up instantly.
All
And
good.
again, best way I could describe you is the way I've seen you do things for 2 years is like you to me are known like the sample this guy, and I fucking love it. You know, because like every one of your videos, always, no matter what, you've like titled it before, like sample this, and I'll always see one and I'll be like, this is a really cool fucking loop. Like no matter what, I'll always throw down one. But dude, yeah, I want to have you on the show because it's just I've been following your stuff for a minute, and it's cool to see you, you know, go from when I started watching you like more as just a dude posting like shorts content, like sample this all the time, and now you're like full-fledged producer working with Bring Me. Like, I guess tell me a little bit about that journey, because I'm not sure as many people know like how crazy that is to start from where you started and be where you're at now.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, kind of a long story, but yeah, I guess I'll summarize it. It's funny you mentioned the whole sample this thing because actually the last few weeks I've been taking that out of the videos
Hmm.
because I'm kind of like, gearing more towards like the artist aspect of it,
Right.
and less like the sample maker thing, but yeah, basically, I've been making samples for a while now. Um, I was starting off just making like guitar samples, sending them out to producers, like kind of trying to just get placements. I was posting on Looperman a lot. I don't know if you're familiar, but I was just trying to get my samples out. I love making like melodies. That's to me like
Right.
my favorite thing. So I was like, okay, like I'm gonna, and I saw like kind of a prevalence of sample makers getting placements and stuff through this method. And so
Hmm.
I was like, yeah, I want to build my catalog, hopefully want to get a publishing deal, stuff like that. And then yeah, so I basically did that for a while, and then I would see people on social media do the sample this thing, right? Like, for like a few years, there's been different versions of it, and so I would see that, and so at first I started posting like screen recordings of my samples, and a couple did like pretty well, and then
Right.
I kind of was like, when things started doing well, I was like, oh, let me like double down on this, and I would just like start doing it more, and then like the screen recordings kind of plateaued, and then I would see people like doing like their like live versions and like their like
Right.
showing themselves doing whatever, like doing more content than just a screen recording. So I'm like, I could do that. Like, let me do that. So I had to step out of my comfort zone, did that, instantly started to do better doing that. So I was like, all right, I'm just gonna keep doing this.
Hmm.
And yeah, it kind of like it started off as like, and I've kind of noticed the more I would like play around, like, when I first started making samples, I was more thinking I was looking at like kind of records that were like being placed and bigger stuff and then kind of like sort of emulating that and being like, oh, I'm gonna make stuff that, like most artists would like. But then
Right.
as I started experimenting more and being like, I'm gonna do what I want to do, that's when it started like kicking off. And I'm like, oh, okay, let me like, play around some more. And,
Well,
which
yeah,
was
nowadays too,
gratifying.
because everyone's heard like kind of everything, and I love that your approach of like again seeing your stuff now, especially like you're using the guitar as an effect thing, and that's something I'm always preaching. Like I don't know if you listen to like a lot of the modern heavy nonsense going on, like Valjarta Marar and like Thal and that kind of fun shit.
Not
But
too much now.
yeah, but it's basically like the guitar is being used as a dubstep machine.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's so cool because it's just a different approach. And like everyone's seen, someone shred 300 BPM now. Like it's cool. That's awesome. Like guitarists can do that. But like, how do I utilize that? And that's something I loved about the medium you were, championing basically of like, hey, I'm writing cool stuff and people can literally use this. And it's also obviously genius of marketing if you're trying to get placements and beats to just be like, yo, here's me making cool shit. Who wants, who wants in? Like
Right.
that's so cool, dude.
Well, yeah, I mean that's like that's kind of how I looked at it was like I have so many influences like electronic stuff, all this stuff. And so like to me the guitar was like a tool. It was never like, oh, here, look at my performance. It was like
Right.
here's like a produced cool sound designed thing that I want to like have eventually in a record. So and yeah, the way things are going now is it's kind of just like it helped me like build my catalog, get placements and stuff like that. Even a lot of like the ones that were more beneficial for me were like actually just independent artists that would basically like
Mhm.
their first few videos they would duet my things and then they like, like get a
Right.
viral song off of duetting me and like it was really a cool thing to see happen. But now it seems like people are sampling my stuff less and people are just listening to it and it's just like it's
Mhm.
like the algorithm at first was pushing me to like producers and stuff
Right.
and now it's just like just a general fan base and stuff, which is why I'm kind of trying to gear my stuff towards like
Mhm.
just being an artist and for listeners.
Well, dude, mad respect. I mean, you got like fucking like 3.5 mil or something on monthlies, which is insane.
Yeah, yeah.
Like that's wild for any producer to have, especially like one that's more, I guess, guitar electronic based, and that's so sick that you're able to make these like sampled sounds, but still kind of full fledged them into like a beat, a full song. And like I remember the Lobster track, I think was the last one I heard from you that was like popping like damn, and it's
Yeah.
like it's so catchy that I know as soon as I'm scrolling anything and I hear that, I'm like, okay, there's RJ. And I know you have like you have a very specific cool, like, I don't want to say like hyper pop, but like glitchy poppy guitar sound to what you do that I remember listening to the Bring Me album, and I was like, whoa, okay. And I didn't see your credits in it yet. I was just like listening to the album. I'm like, kind of sounds like RJ. I was like, what the fuck? Like, true, yeah.
That was a cool moment for me because like when that came out, like that midnight, I was getting DMs like, "Yo, are you on the new Bring Me album? Are
Yeah.
you?" Or, I was like, I didn't even post about it yet. So like, it was really nice. I was like, that's so cool that people can like. That was always my goal to like have a sound, you know, like that
Yeah.
was like what I wanted like to craft and to like learn what that is for me and like to see that it works in that way is really great. You know?
Yeah, how did that? Because I think especially like bleeding into like the very modern metal world, like that's something that I think a lot of people noticed in that, and they were like, who is this? You know what I mean? And like, how did that opportunity arise? Was it one of those just, hey, I like what you do, let's do something kind of thing?
Yeah, yeah, literally it was just I think I forget what video was like going viral at the time, but I just got a DM on TikTok from the Bring Me account
Yeah,
and he was like, "Yo, like you should make some riffs for us." I was like,
that's it.
"Yeah, I'll do that." And yeah, we were just like on email and we worked on a few things and he would just be like, "Oh yeah, this is sick. I'll do like a bunch of different versions of stuff." And you know, and
Hmm.
this was the one that ended up coming out and I didn't know it was going to come out till like a few days before the project dropped, so it was pretty cool.
Dude, yeah, and that's one they're like I think that's like their focus track, like the statues cry blood, like that's the one they're like pushing the most too. Like, did you know it would have had a music video and all that too, or is it
No,
just
I had
like,
no idea. And like, yeah, it ended up, I think it went like #1 on the Billboard Rock chart or something like that. And like, yeah, it was like their it's not anymore, but it was on like their top Spotify thing. So I was like, that's sick. Yeah.
that's fucking cool, dude. that's
Yeah.
that
I was
must,
happy.
dude. Yeah, and I love how that's kind of the modern age of, I guess, how some bands are thinking. Like, Bring Me's a very, I think, modern, forward-thinking band where like they're not just looking at all the old shit that's happening and like, sure, the OGs are great, but they're looking at like, yo, who are these new producers, beat makers, all of that are doing cool stuff, you know, that are either popping off or even some like, I know there's some huge bands that work with beat makers that like have like sometimes like 1,000, you know, followers, but like they just make the wildest thing, and then they just, it just so happens that they were scrolling and they saw this and they're just like, I need this. Like I
Yeah.
need to be involved with this. I don't know what this person's, who it is. I want this involved in what I'm doing. And that's such a cool modern way where I feel like artists are more open to doing that and collaborating. Cause that's the pop world. Those, you know, the rap world, it's the metal world is like really behind, I think. With that.
Yeah. Well, I think it's like kind of like a perspective of doing stuff in service to like the music and you
Yeah.
know the culture versus like, oh, like I'm doing this all by myself, you know, and like how can I make the best piece of art here, you know?
Hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah. Has there any, like, I'm sure Bring Me, did you grow up listening to Bring Me or anything like that? Or was that more of just like a cool,
In
like,
high school, I listened to them a little bit back when they were like doing like post-hardcore stuff, you know.
hell yeah.
Yeah, but like I hadn't followed them in a while, you know. But I do admire their like trajectory just because I feel like kind of the way I look at it is like in order to grow as like an artist, like all like to me, at least from my perspective, so many artists and bands and stuff that have longevity
Mhm.
evolve their sound, you know,
Yeah.
and they like try new things and they don't like it's not like, oh, like you know, and I feel like inevitably fans are gonna be like, oh, we want the old whatever back. And I'm still experiencing that. The stuff I was making last year, totally
Really? You
different.
got that already? I want the
Yeah,
old
yeah. Well,
RJ back, dude.
yeah, yeah. Well, look, I'm doing a lot more heavier stuff now, and I started off doing more like clean, hyper
Mm.
poppy stuff. So, but like to me, I'm just like, I feel like in order to grow as an artist, you got to like grow your sound and try new things and experiment and kind of have like a fearless attitude towards it, you know?
Yeah, I mean that's the age of how people are writing too. Like they're fucking even bedroom producers. They're like they have splice. You know, they're just looking for cool samples, cool beats that they can use to just, you know, make their sound something that's bigger. And even if it's like 2 seconds of it, like sure, you know, amazing.
Yeah,
Like that's something that just makes. And some of those 2 seconds can be a thing that literally makes a song the biggest hit in the entire world. Is just a two
yeah,
second loop or beat. You know, and I feel
yeah,
like a lot of, again, on at least on the metal scene side, like people don't understand and appreciate, and they're like, no, it's the whole thing. It's always this chorus, and sure, sometimes a whole song could be a masterpiece, but literally, it just sometimes takes that one sound that you hear, and it's stuck in your head forever. You could even hate the song, but you love that one sound, and you're like, fuck, you know, like
right.
it's there forever. And yeah, that's such a cool age that we live in. Do you like mess with splice? Like, I guess how far, because I feel like you're technologically way more advanced in the beat sample world than I've ever gone. Like I use splice and I use a few other things, and I'm like, okay, serum, MIDI shit and all that. Like what's your rig like, I guess, your go-to for making stuff like this?
Yeah, I'll use Splice sometimes, not too much. It's usually when I'm like trying to do something like left field or when I'm like building out tracks. Because basically, like my process has been like I make a loop, tease it on socials, and then when something does well, then I build it out into like a full thing. So
I love that.
sometimes I'll go on Splice for like like sound effects kind of stuff, like down sweeps, like just different like supplemental things that I
Hmm.
might not have at hand or want to like switch up a little bit. Um, yeah, as far as like go-to stuff, I'm kind of like a creature of habit. I kind of like start with like the same stuff. I use like the same
Hmm.
for my heavy tone. I use Tone Forge Jason Richardson for like
Hell
the
yeah.
or like the heavy tone, and for my clean tone, I got this tip from Scro Baby. Shout out Scro, but I use OTT, but I use Ableton's stock multiband compressor. And on the OTT preset, and I just put it like 50% and it just like brings out like some cleanness. And then other than that, it's like I'll use like reverb and delay here and there, but most of it's like in the editing and stuff. And I
Hmm.
kind of keep it minimalist as far as like rig wise. I don't use like like I'll use like sometimes there's this distortion that Serum has on Serum Effects. It's called Zero Square. It makes it
Yeah.
kind of sound like a square wave a little bit. And I like using stuff like that sometimes. And I'll experiment here and there, but most of the time I'm kind of making like slow changes to the way I do things versus like experimenting with a whole lot of stuff.
Hmm.
So
That makes, dude, that's so sick. And again, just I think, and I always say the word synthetic sounds, and Chet gets fucking pissed at me because I just keep saying it. But I feel like, especially we're in the age, again, even in the rock world, where like everything's synthetic, everything's combined with electronics. Like, even if you have a guitar layer, you're gonna probably layer it with synths nowadays, which is cool
yeah.
that you already have been doing that in this cool sample format. Do you still get like, and it's probably the funniest comment, like people saying, "Yo, bro, you're not like you're not, you didn't play that. Where's the glitch, bro? Like, like you're not actually
Yeah.
chugging the glitch there."
Oh
Like,
no, it's funny. It's like I'll be like in like on a boat with like
mm,
my guitar obviously not plugged in, and people are like,
yeah.
"Bro, it's not plugged in," and I'm like, "It's Bluetooth, bro." I'm like, "What are you like?" No, I mean to me, it's just at first I was kind of confused because I'm like, I'm not even playing. I'm not doing like a performance video. I'm not like
Right, right.
performing here. This is like it's like you see all these other artists doing content that are vocalists that are just lip syncing with their songs to push their songs and
Yes.
stuff like, and no one's saying, "Oh, this guy's not actually recording this right now." It's
Yeah.
like it's just. I feel like in the guitar community, it's just different where people, when they see someone with a
Yes.
guitar, they're like, "Oh no, this has to be a live performance," So
Well, I think it's funny too, because you can imagine some people are genuinely like so confused, probably, that don't understand, like, they don't know modern day technology and how you can manipulate it in a
yeah,
way. So
yeah,
they're just like sitting there like almost mad because they're like, "Well, I know I'm good enough to make that noise, but I can't. What's going on here, man?"
right,
Like, so
right.
it's just funny, think of people tripping out completely, like probably the whole day, and they're just angry because they don't know how they can do that just with their guitar, not understanding that like a computer exists and you're supposed to
Yeah.
be able to manipulate sounds and make cool shit.
Well, I mean, and that's the thing is like I feel like there is like definitely, especially people that don't like produce or maybe just are instrumentalists and don't have any,
Yeah.
like there is a lot of like people just don't know. And so I try to be transparent with like pretty much every time I have something that's like pretty viral and I do a release for it,
Yeah.
I'll make like I've done a handful of like tutorials where I basically like here's how I made this, and I just walk through the process, and like I try to be like, okay, this is how I do everything, because also I think it's cool to like see other people kind of emulating the style and everything like that, and like make somewhat of a cultural impact that way too.
Oh, dude,
So
100%. And again, this is that age where, like, I mean, in the guitar world, we have like, Tim Henson obviously is like I think he's probably the guitar modern dude. Like him and Jason in
yeah,
like completely different places. Like Jason's like the modern metal guitar dude, very cinematic, and then Tim is much more utilizing electronics and beats and all of that, and it's more a sample way of thinking. It's cool even watching his fucking tutorials, how he'll be like, I use an arpeggiator to make the craziest melody that people are losing their shit for. And I don't think
right,
people, most people are just like, what? Like it's weird because you have guitar, people expect everything come from guitar, and
right,
that's it. But
right.
it's just
Yeah.
no, if that hasn't happened in the pop world for like 20 years. So like the guitar Yeah, the guitar world and the metal world, I guess I kind of combine them a lot. It's like they're just a bit more, I think, behind technologically of understanding that that's what's happening, and that's how people are utilizing things in nowadays.
Well, it kind of reminds me of like the whole thing, like when EDM kind of started getting popular, like what, like 10 years ago or whatever, and
Mm.
everyone was like, oh, like it's not real music, like these just like button pushers and stuff. And it's
Button
like
pushers.
everything you're hearing on the radio is made the exact same way, the same exact thing. Like it's all like technology, like,
Mm.
creating this thing, just because, and so I don't know. Yeah, I think it's just,
Yeah. Well, having
different world.
that technology is so exciting as a musician because it just allows you to be way more creative than being limited by like what is just around me physically right now that I can pick up. Because I remember back in my day, fucking back in the day where you had to pick up guitar, you had to turn on your amplifier, you had to I had to such intense movements. You turn on the cab, right, and that's just to play guitar, and these are not very big tasks. But you think of that compared to now when you load up your laptop, you launch Ableton, Cubase, whatever, and you just like plug in, notes in my head, dun, 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 play, go. And you're able to just get that idea out so much quicker and more effectively that as a musician, like that's so relieving, man. That's so relaxing. Instead of having this big entry to barrier every time you just want to be creative, it can be exhausting, but also obviously the natural ways you can come up with different stuff, but also the synthetic ways you can come up with, I think, more unique stuff because technology is helping you think in a weird ass way that like if you just sat there with your guitar and an amp, it's not going to happen. It's just not.
Right. Well, I mean, yeah, that's it. Kind of just from like I remember, like I was in a band in high school, and like when we would go to the studio, it was like, oh, here, let's record this whole part,
Yeah.
And it's like now I'm like sometimes punching in literally note by note,
Yeah.
or like I'm punching in so much, but I've gotten so fast at it that it's like this idea, like the creative energy flows because I'm able to like keep
Mm.
instead of like, oh, let's do it again, oh, let's do it again,
Yeah.
and like do it that way. Like to me, I'm like it's more conducive to the creative process to like be editing it like that. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's like I feel like the more I have gotten better with editing, the more it's like it's not like I'm recording and then editing. It's like I'm doing it in tandem with the creation,
Yeah.
So like as I'm writing, I'm editing and it's creating new ideas along the way of the creation, So
Dude,
yeah.
yeah, the ability that you can record one guitar noise and then use pitch shifting for the same exact thing, or you can cut it up, or you can manipulate it so much from just going where okay, and then having that
Right.
as an audio file. It's exciting. I mean, I've had many times too where I'm making breakdowns, and again nowadays in modern metal, guitar is basically an effects machine that you make a cool riff. You make the low note, make funny noise, and then you add it. You make effects in between, and all you're doing there is again, duh, okay, cut, 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 cut. Pitch shift, reverse, like adding it all, like splicing it together, and that's what's creating all these wild noises that people, I think, are just still taking a second to understand. And even now, like you can only do so many different Herman Lee noises on a guitar that like
Yeah.
like people haven't already done. So being able to utilize technology for that is so refreshing and relaxing. And I mean, you see it even in, again, the modern metal scene. It's everywhere. People would be surprised how much of what they're hearing is all MIDI, is all just crazy edits, is all. I mean, the amount of times I get asked the question, "Is that a synth or a guitar?" is hilarious
Yeah.
nowadays. Like it's wild.
Yeah.
So I love seeing those two worlds. And then there's obviously the scarier side of the AI taking over everything as usual. But like, I mean, I messed around with it. AI is, you can have some fun with it until it literally can print. It's probably, that's like fuck. I don't,
Yeah,
have you
I'm
messed
not too
around?
hip on the AI stuff, to be honest, but
Yeah. It
yeah.
can. It's wild how much it can do and how fast it's going. And that's the scary part for me, is like it's not like okay, you can mess around and it can make some cool ideas. Like that's cool.
Right.
It's in like probably a year or two, that's printing. Like
Oh
that's
yeah, 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 I'm sure, yeah.
pure printing. You're going to be able to print instantly all the stems from what you make, and they're going to be pristine stems. It's going to it'll give you guitar tabs, I'm sure, at some point, right? And it's just going
Oh
to be
yeah.
like print, sounds amazing, not robotic, and like, I mean, I'm sure labels are already like, "Phew, I can't
Oh
fucking wait."
yeah.
Um, but
Yeah.
yeah, that's its own scary world. So yeah, I know the lines kind of blur always between AI and just like editing. As soon as you see something's robotic, people are like, oh, it's fake, it's AI now, instead of just, no, I
Right.
sat here for fucking 50 hours making this one guitar sound really cool, bro.
I mean, I think the thing with like AI and stuff and just the technology in general is like, it's, I think it's, you got to adapt or you're going to be left behind and,
Yeah.
not really, like, there's no choice but to adapt, like, you got to work with it. So,
Yeah, man, you got to work with that stuff, and even same thing with content creation. And again, I got to give you mad props. Like, how was that for your journey? Did you start TikTok, or did you like what was your platform that you actually like OG started on for shorts and all of that?
I actually did like Instagram videos, like pre-Reels and TikTok era in
Okay,
like 2018. I would do like I was making like beats and they're kind of just they're mid, like I don't think
okay,
they're bad. I'd have some people buy them every now and then. Not what I'm making now, but I would post a while there. Most of them didn't get more than like 100 likes. I was posting every day for like a year, but I think there was no like algorithm back then. So like to me, like
mm,
200 likes was like, oh, like this reached like a good amount of people,
yeah,
and it was like, uh, so yeah. And then I took a break from that for a bit. And then once like TikTok came around, I still had Instagram and I was using Instagram for like networking as a producer and stuff. But like
right,
the content, I started back up on TikTok. And then once TikTok, started like picking up, my manager was like, I had like just gotten management, like right at the cusp of when I was like starting to do the content.
right,
And then he was like, you should just post everything on Reels too. I was like, ah,
yeah,
okay. And so I just like my method has been like since I started on TikTok first, like whatever does the best on TikTok, I post on Instagram and then like just go that way.
smart,
So Instagram's on a bit of a delay, but it's like because I'm using TikTok as like a testing ground sort of
mm,
thing. And so yeah, and that was what like I think I started the videos like March of last year back up on TikTok like that, like doing like
right, right.
screen recordings and stuff. Yeah.
That dude, I remember when that stuff all started to come out because I'm I used to do the fucking full YouTubes and that's. I remember shorts becoming a thing with TikTok, just short form content. I was like, this is a little fucking weird, but okay. Like I will adapt. As you said, like you adapt or no one gives a shit. Like that's how it goes.
Right.
And I remember that coming out, and for some reason having that mentality of like I can't repeat content. Like if I do a long form, I can't take a piece of the long form into a short, or even vice versa. Like you do something on TikTok, you can't copy paste it on Instagram. And I don't know why I even had that mentality because it makes no sense at all, other than you feeling like this arbitrary thing that your whole audience always knows everything you're posting. You know what I mean? So it's
Right.
like, oh, I'm just going to give them the exact same video on Instagram short that I gave them the full on YouTube without actually understanding that it's basically a completely different audience you're reaching, which is incredible and should be
Yeah.
utilized by everybody.
Yeah. I
um,
second that for sure.
yeah,
No, it's yeah, sorry, go ahead.
yeah, it just took me a minute, so I'm glad like you went on that right away because my brain just took like 2 years to not understand that like, oh right, different audiences on different platforms.
Right. And I think there's some crossover. One thing I noticed for me at least, like there's people that see it on both, but they like enjoy seeing it on both. Like there's this
Right.
one guy that he'll every time I post on Instagram, he'll like go in the comments section and be like, hey guys, this one's titled this because he saw on my TikTok what I named it on the TikTok and he comments
That's
it. And I'm
cool.
like, shouts out that guy, and it's like it's just cool because like
Yeah.
seeing like fans like and being on all those places, and then but it is like there's totally different audiences and
Mhm.
yeah, I do think the algorithms work like a little differently, like as far as like what does better on each one. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, there's that's you're right. Like there's that overlap of some audience, but the audience seems to appreciate it weirdly enough,
yeah,
which is great. They're like, "Oh, I just saw this on Instagram. Great. Now I get to enjoy it again on a different platform while I'm scrolling." Versus, yeah,
right.
again, I feel like a lot of, especially the OG, like fucking YouTubers, right? Like they have that mentality that again I got rid of because I'm like, wow, that's a dumb mentality. I should have that of just assuming you do something here, therefore everyone hears it, and oh, you shouldn't post anywhere else. And now, I mean, and for a few years, it's obviously like clips is the name of the game. Even if you have a podcast, like people have podcasts, no one watches the whole thing, but everyone will watch the 5 minute clips of like a 3 hour podcast. And
Right, right.
that's what people actually give a shit about, not the fuck. They're not going to sit there for an hour, bro.
Yeah, no, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, it's such a different world. Have you ever, or have you had specific people hit you up, whether it's other producers or like musicians, that you were even like, whoa, like what the like that's not something I expected to see, in the DMs of like where I've been going with all of this.
Yeah, I mean, like for me, like talking to Tim and like
Mm,
working with him was like that was like the big one because he's like one of my biggest influences, you know. So that was like a big one.
mm.
Uh, I think like Sway Lee DM'd me last year, and
That's sick.
I was like, what? And a few other ones, like the big producers like Benny X, Murda Beats,
Mm,
like TM88, Jetson. I'm trying to think. Lil Mosey's DM me, like bigger
mm.
rappers and stuff.
That's sick.
Yeah, yeah.
Because and I'm assuming it's going this way again. I keep up decently with like the top 50 in rap world and hip hop world. Like they want more. It seems like guitar related, aggressive ish samples. Like I'm hearing a lot more, at least just guitar noises in a lot of the music coming out nowadays, which seems to be refreshing. And like that's sick as fuck for people like what you're doing, because that's so refreshing and new to that world, and it's really really refreshing combining those worlds to the guitar world, and especially the metal world. Like that's like 5 years ahead of still the metal world, to be
Yeah, I
honest.
mean, I think what Don Tolliver, his recent project had like guitars on it and stuff like that. And
Mm,
yeah, I do think it's making a comeback for sure. I think there was like a period of time where guitars became kind of like uncool, and I think it's
yeah,
like going back the other direction now, you know?
that's good. That's how it should be, man. Guitar it's and it's funny. It's the utilizing guitar as like a noise maker that seems to be doing sick. I mean, I used to, when I was like 5 years ago or so, I got onto like a Chica. Like I guess a lot on like they're not the math rock guys, but I just call it math rock to piss off everyone watching always. But like, the dudes doing the very pretty playing, like specifically like a Chica, like I guess Kovad and like of course Polyphia at that time, when they were doing less of the trap and more of just like the pretty sounding kind of open guitar stuff.
Right.
And I remember hearing specifically a Chica and hearing some of the guitar stuff, and I was like, holy fuck, this is gonna everywhere lo-fi beats, just like
Yeah. Yeah.
everywhere. He's just
Yeah.
doing cool guitar noises, but like there's no way this isn't going to be a much bigger thing that translates to the mainstream world, because of just how unique and melodic everything is with that.
Oh yeah. I mean, his stuff's beautiful. I love his stuff. But yeah, he's
Yeah, it's super super well. Is there like with all of the again grinding, like I gotta get, because I saw fuck, what is it, Times Square? I think you took a picture in Times Square, right?
oh yeah, what was it
I
with
think, was it Lobster, or was it Lobster or the fucking
I think it was Isekai. I did like the video.
Isekai?
And,
Yes,
yeah.
Isekai. I remember seeing a picture of that. How is it seeing stuff like that for you as an artist? Especially like again, producer, content creator, whatever you want to label it as. Everyone labels everything so differently nowadays. Like, how is it going from again, I'm making fucking beats in your bedroom, to holy shit, like you're in fucking New York and you see like actual like like Billboard has things like just going on with your name, with your songs. Like, is that fucking
Well, I
insane?
mean, yeah, it's like I think it's really I still feel like the guy just cooking up at home and posting stuff on the internet, and it's
Right.
like I live in New Jersey, so it's like I'm not really like I've been like recognized a couple times by people, and but I'm not really like outside that much like that. But then it'll be like when I go to like LA and stuff, and I do a trip where I'm doing
Oh shit.
sessions and stuff, and I meet with like label people or whatever, and then I'm like the way that I'm like kind of approaching these situations, I'm like, oh wait, I'm doing something here, like this,
This is
I'm
cool,
like,
dude.
yeah, I'm like, wow, like people like, care, and I'm like, but
Mm. Well, that.
otherwise I kind of feel like a regular guy. And some of it, there's kind of, I guess, since most of it I'm seeing on my phone, there's this
Right.
level of like separation from it, but I
Mm.
make sure to like be grateful for it, and like to try and really like reflect and be like, wow, like, yeah, this is happening right now,
Mm. Do you still feel that pressure now that again you're popping, like you've been popping off for a minute now, like to keep posting? Like, do you feel like, oh shit, like it's TikTok, I gotta do TikTok? I don't know how often you do it, if you do daily or like weekly, or what's your
So
schedule?
I was doing like on TikTok, I was doing like 3 times a day, sometimes like 5 times a day for like a
Fuck,
year.
what you were doing
Yeah,
multi.
like all new music at like each
Holy
post,
shit, dude.
like,
That's
and that
sick.
was like 20% of what I was actually making. So I was like really like like,
Oh
I've
my
been for few years now, I've been like really like making a lot of music every day. I've been more now, I've been I just moved, so I've been a bit busier lately, but I've been making a bit more, like I've been making basically the same amount of music, but being more selective with what I post because I'm kind
Mm.
of just the way things are going. I feel like a lot of the times I would post stuff that like it was good, but it didn't have that like that quality to
Yeah,
it
did
that
you
like
like feel that pressure now that there's this higher bar for yourself that's almost like unrealistic of like because you got to this level and you're like, fuck, every sample this now has to be like the craziest sample ever that anyone's ever heard.
yeah, but I mean basically that's kind of I'm like I'm always trying to one up myself, and that's
Right.
like I don't, and there's I'll post stuff and I'll be like I know this is kind of like a filler one,
Yeah.
and it's like just because I'm like I just got to wait till that. You can't control creativity like that. It's tough to be
Yes.
like. I mean, all I could really do is show up, make music, and then when as long as I'm showing up, eventually that moment is gonna come where I make that thing that has that like je ne sais quoi to it, whatever. But
Mhm.
um, a lot of times it's out of my control, and so sometimes I do, but I have been like, okay, like if I post a little less frequently now, I think it's great to post frequently trying to build a following, but now that I
Yeah.
have the audience, I'm like trying to be more considerate of like what the audience wants and what kind of like look at it from their perspective. And it's like, also be posting stuff that like I'm proud of, so like when I'm like making something, I'm like, oh, like I can't wait to post this one.
Mhm.
So
How did the lobster beat come about? Because that's again seeing that one explode, which I remember hearing it and being like, "Oh, this is cool! Like it's like bluesy, bendy, and like glitchy. Like that's the unique like combo of old school and very very modern. Like how did that one come about? And just yeah, what's the story with lob and the name too?
right. Yeah. So, so it's funny because I didn't really have like an idea when I sat down to do it. The only thing I was really thinking was like, I think it would be cool to have a guitar strum as the upbeat. So like in the
Okay.
sample, it goes like, dun, chee,
Yeah.
dun, chee.
Mhm.
And so like to me, that was what I started with. And I was like, oh, and I had like a few other ideas that did that kind of thing before it. As I was like, oh, it'd be cool to have like a percussive element using the guitar in this. And that was like my starting thing. And then I was like, just playing around over that after I recorded that with the 808s and the thing. And then I just did the bends and I was like, oh, that's kind of sick.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I just built it from there. And I kind of like leaned into that bluesy feel because I didn't really do bendy stuff.
Mhm.
Like I didn't really do bendy stuff like that. So I kind of just leaned into it while I was making it. And then, yeah. And then, I had that one. I didn't think it would do as well. I thought it would do pretty well, but I didn't think it would do as well as it did. I didn't think it was being my biggest one for sure, but because
Mhm.
I also felt like it was kind of different, since it was a little more different from what I was doing. I was like, oh, it could go either way.
Right.
But yeah, and then the name, I had like posted it. It was like a Saturday that I had posted it in the morning, and that day I went on a fishing trip with some friends.
Oh my
And so
god.
it was like blowing up like
Right.
I was like looking at my phone. I was like, oh, this one's going crazy right now. I got to
Right.
figure out a name for this one. And then I was like, I'm on a fishing trip. I was like thinking of like fish and stuff. I was like, not fish. And I was like, seafood. I was like, lobster sounds like that would go hard. And I was like, and
Lobster
it's also
goes
kind of
hard,
like
bro.
yeah, I was like, it's kind of like a
Yeah.
name that like is kind of memorable too. Cause I was like, I don't think anyone's got a song named that. So
That's
I was like,
true.
let's run it. So
That's yeah, and it's and when it comes to that process too, and again, this intrigues because this is something I do on a I guess a smaller level too. I have like my how to in 30 second series, and it's that same mentality of like,
but yeah, I
okay,
like that.
oh yeah, thanks man, yeah, those are super fun because it's just bands that I grew up listening to, and you talk with your friends, and you're like, oh yeah, they do the fucking you got to include that, like, and you're trying to like
Right.
stereotypically kind of include what a band is with like in 8 points, which is literally what I have. I have a notepad that is just 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8, and it's tricky when you have to include a band that has a big discography. Like Bring Me was fucking
Oh, sure.
that
Yeah.
was hell. I'm like I don't know, like all of it, I guess, like deathcore and pop and everything, but it's fun doing a series like that because I have that similar mentality of like you do the short, see how well it does, test the waters because it instantly creates the demand for the full version, right?
Mhm.
And then it's not just I feel like a lot of content creators do a lot of content where it goes crazy, but then it's just a video with numbers, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't. What does that translate to? Okay, more followers. And okay, go do extra dances. Like what the fuck are you gonna do with
Right.
like? And then it's just sad because they keep doing the same thing, hoping to recreate that spark by capitalizing on it by simply just making the number bigger instead of, oh, this is going. People want this. Let me just create the full version of it that you can also just monetize. Like it seems to make so much more sense, which again, as musicians, I guess we're a little luckier than someone doing it with dances because I don't know
Yeah.
what they're going to release on Spotify, like a dance routine or like a fucking Roomba fucking thing. But Roomba's not
Right.
a dance. That was the wrong one. A Roomba's a fucking robot. But yeah, it's just, like, how did that, is that something that came natural to you of doing that as a process? Like this is popping off, go full, or is it something that just, yeah, came
Well,
about?
it's funny, like shouts out my management because that's the thing. Like I feel like when it came to this, my mind when I started doing this was like get placements. That's it.
Right.
Single track, just get placements. And my management was the one that, you know, I had it was like my first viral loop. It wasn't like viral, but it was like the first one that did pretty well
Right.
last year. And it was, you know, doing well. And I was like, oh, this is sick. And then my management was like, "Oh, like, have you thought about like putting this stuff on streaming platforms?" I was like, "Yeah, I think that'd be a good idea." And I was like, "Yeah, I think it'd be cool to like do an artist page." And I was thinking, I'm like, "Oh, let me make some stuff, some other stuff to put on streaming platforms." And
Right.
they were like, "Why don't you do the one that's viral right now?" And I was like, "Oh, that makes sense," you know. And like I had worked on some other stuff, like, and I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, like they're like, oh yeah, this is sick," but you know, like right now, I think a lot of people listen to this, and I did it, and it worked. And then
Yeah.
that's been my process ever since, basically, because I'm like. I've noticed, you know, I'll upload stuff on Spotify that maybe didn't
Mhm.
have as much demand and it just doesn't stream as well, which is fine. You know, I have fans that like will still listen to it, but
Right.
like the virality directly correlates with how well
Exactly.
it's.
And I think that's like content creator side of brain too, where a lot of people are so just like down in the sense of like, okay, this goes viral, but no one wants this. Like no one wants to
Right.
like a legit version of it, right? Like I've dealt with that all the time too, where you do something, you're like, oh, that was fun. And then you just move on. You're not like, okay, this needs to, be professionally delivered on streaming platforms and all that. And then you look back like a year later and you're like, oh, like everyone, why didn't I just fucking submit? Could have done it in 20
Right.
minutes.
Well, yeah, I mean that's that, like basically the way I started it was like I would just upload extended versions of my loops. I would take the exact same loop that was there, just
Right.
extend it to a minute and
Smart.
put it on streaming platforms. That's it. Don't, you know, just like
Yeah.
just so it's there, you know.
That makes
So,
a lot. I mean, people only get paid for the 30 seconds. Anyways, who cares? Like that's,
yeah, yeah. Yeah.
that's so
And a lot
funny.
of people only want to listen to I would like try some different versions. Like I did this one, and then
Yeah.
I started doing like a version and then a 2.0 version, like one that like
Right.
had drums, one that didn't have drums. And then sometimes the ones that didn't have drums that were just loop stream better than the ones that like had production on it and stuff. And so it was
People,
like,
yeah, people just literally want to listen to the same sound repeated like for
yeah,
2 hours, and
that's
it's
it.
surprising. Again, when you're the person that makes it, it's like I already
Yeah,
listened to this for fucking 5 hours. Like, dude, I'm done. Like, you
right.
really, like, I totally understand that. And then you put it on, you're like, you want to listen to this thing that's every 20 seconds repeated for the next 5 hours, and you're like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, that I don't know how that makes sense, but it does, and
I
people
think
want that.
society is becoming a bit more like neurodivergent as time goes on, and I think
Yeah.
that kind of stuff gets like appealing, you know.
Yeah, and what
So
people are using music for nowadays more too. Like it's not the good old days of let's get a fucking vinyl and sit down and go through it and listen to a whole album. It's I'm gaming, and I just want a cool sound, or I'm studying.
right.
Do you have any idea of the demographic you have in terms of what your main listener is doing when they listen? That's such a curious question.
I'd say like mostly gaming and like gym goers and
Mm,
yeah, mostly gaming and gym people, you know.
that's
So,
awesome.
because that's basically what I like. Everyone's like, oh, like I'm bumping this one playing Elden Ring, or like you
Hell
know,
yeah.
like this helped me hit a PR and shit
Just
like
help
that.
me hit a
Yeah,
PR, dude. That's
which is cool. And
yeah.
before that, it was definitely like more like study stuff when I was doing more chill music. It
The
was
beats, yeah.
like oh, like studying like that kind of thing. So
Yeah, because and again, reflecting on those years and seeing now, like I forgot the biggest. I think it's Lo-Fi Girl. That's like the biggest lo-fi beach
right.
channel, and still looking at that, and you see it in your feed sometimes. You're like, there is straight up 10,000 people live concurrent watching this endless stream right now, and this is like I can't believe this is real. Like, yeah, this is actually happening. People are just they're studying and they just put this in the background, and it's incredible for Lo-Fi Girl for sure, and content and music creators and producers like that, because they will probably get more plays or even 5x out of people, the same person, than a person that sat there, created a whole fucking record start to finish, took 2 years for it, just for people to listen to the singles and then get sick of them and listen to the next metal band, an
No,
extra.
literally the market for like ambient background instrumental
Yeah.
kind of stuff is like bananas. Like I had like my manager flagged me this thing. It was like this guy did a like it was like a minute long ambient kind of like thing that was just it was a simple like ambient
Yeah.
thing with some piano. I think it was a viral sound at some point or something. Had like 600 million streams or something like that. I'm like, this guy literally like is making more than like doctors and like off of like literally like an ambient loop, you know? I'm like,
That's
that's
sick.
crazy. So yeah.
Jesus, man. Yeah, that's the age. Have you do you like sell, do you just save your beats, or do you like sell them? Like, do you put them as samples anywhere, or do you just kind of keep them for yourself and work with
Yeah, I
producers?
mean the way I the so you mean like
Like,
the
do you do sample packs and stuff like that already?
yeah.
Okay.
So I do post sample packs. It's basically the way I post it is I don't do I used to do royalty free stuff. I don't do that anymore just because like
Yeah,
the
you're
way I've
winning.
kind of
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. Yeah.
yeah, I mean it's just like uh to me I think building catalogs important and like I'd rather like I tell people like I have sample packs. If you want to get the WAV file with the stems, you could buy the sample pack of like the
Mm,
last 20 loops I posted. I do it like just by increments of like every 20 posts on Instagram, basically.
right.
And but you still got to clear it like just with like royalty percentage and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
of
And so
course.
I'll tell people like if you can't afford the money, you can still rip the video and use it that way, and then like just clear it like on the back and like
Yeah.
just like on percentages. Because like I'd rather just like have the percentage on the thing, like
Yeah. Well, because there's
yeah.
always that case where, sure, maybe a lot of like like bedroom producers might be like, "This is sick, and I just want to use it, like, and use it for personal, or like upload a fun little song on YouTube." And then there's the case of like, "Oh, like I don't fucking know, like Doja Cat, or I'm not singling out Doja Cat, but like huge star. All of a sudden, you hear your loop, and you're like, what the fuck? Like,
Yeah.
am I getting anything? Am I getting splits or something? Because it's such a, like, that's such a big deal. And in music like that, again, like I was mentioning, those 2 seconds, which could be your loop or someone's loop, can literally make the entire song. Is what it is, which is crazy. That's why I'm so like, Splice is an interesting place because it's all copyright free, but you're like,
Right.
okay, people are already overlapping like big main melodies with choruses and this, and it's just a matter of time where there's too much massive overlapping where you're like, okay, this is just all these songs have the same thing. It's not even
Right.
different. It's not even pitched.
Yeah, yeah. And then it's like the people things get more popular, like a sample will get more popular, and then
Yeah,
there's like it's yeah.
it can get crazy.
Yeah. I mean, I think the whole sample thing is like it's interesting because the way I kind of have a perspective like if it makes a great song, then whatever ends up making the great song.
Yeah,
But yeah, I
exactly.
think there's like also it's like what are you trading off for that as far as like what like is like what are you making at the end of the day? Are you like
Mhm.
making original music or are you like manufacturing something?
Yeah.
So
Do you have any like, holy shit, if this person was to hit me up to make a beat for them or to work with me with samples for you, that you would just be like, all right, we're good. Thank you, internet. Thank you. We're good. We're done. I'm happy. Life's good.
well, my top three have been Polyphia, Skrillex, and Cashmere Cat.
Oh fuck.
So those are like the three.
Mm,
For me, it's like dream collaborations. So
that's sick. Yeah. I mean, fucking Polyphia, man. Their last record was insane. It's it's cool because they still bleed into the metal world like quite intensely. Like they've left it so long ago, and they like, they're a guitar modern. They're a pop fucking project at this point, right? Like
yeah,
it's
yeah,
cool, and that, thank God. But they created such a long-term discography, and they still bleed so much into the metal world that they're probably the most metal, non-metal sounding band.
right, right. Yeah, because it still embodies the energy. So
Yeah. Yeah, it really embodies the energy. And even their last record, like, they had some low tune guitar stuff, which is cool. I forgot the track. They had the rapper in the last like 20 seconds of the song, Chimera, I think. And
uh-huh.
that's always, it's funny because you listen to the song and you're just like instrumental, and you get used to it, and then the rapper comes like the last like 2 seconds, you're like completely forget every fucking
Right.
time. They had like that, and they had Bloodbath with Chino.
Yeah, that one, yeah, gnarly riff in that one. Yeah,
Dude, that one was so fucking. That's one of my favorite tracks of the year. I was so sad they didn't do like a full fucking, they didn't make it a single or do full like music video for it, because that one is hard as fuck. And again, having the mixture of modern metal, guitars, effects, trap, electronic loops, and then like an OG like Chino, singing over this beautiful thing. It's so cool. And I love seeing especially guitar get into a space that it's not limited anymore. I don't know if that's fair to say. For so many years it's like, okay, guitarist, you shred, or you play metal, you play rock. Now it's like, no, you can do anything with a guitar, and there's literally no limit to, I guess, like the upper echelon of music and genre you can be included and fuse with what you do, which is fucking crazy.
I think now more than like ever, just not even guitar aside, I think there's a lot of genre bending that's just happening in general and like across the board with like so much of stuff that's like, people are listening to in the younger generation and stuff. So I do think it's like a great time for that, for the like, all the worlds to be touched and stuff. So
yeah, it's happening in metal too. I'm like, thank God, metal scene's always like 5 fucking years behind. I'm just like, and I'm glad to see that. And again, I'm not surprised if like next Polyphia has like fucking Post Malone, Ariana Grande like doing some fucking whatever on it, and it being mixed also with like you got like Lorna Shore, or like, you know what I mean? Like just there's so much mixture of everything going on, and it makes all music, bigger. It definitely makes the metal guitar scene bigger, because I feel like for so many years like the guitar world was mad boring, and I became a guitarist before I became kind of a metalhead when I was younger. I grew up with like the Slash and all the OGs, like fucking Sinister Gates was a big one for me too, like Ollie Herbert, and for the past like 7 years before that I was like, nothing's really happening. It's just, do they do it faster, or like did we reach a higher BPM? So I love that guitarists got to the point of just like, okay, no, we need to basically transform the guitar into an not just electric guitar, but like electronic, like synthetic, synthesized instrument that can be fused with these other genres. That's not just I can shred really fast, because it's been done for fucking 40 years, right?
Yeah.
Which is great. But yeah, dude, and again, people like you are like the forefront of doing stuff like that, and just mad respect and mad credit to you. Again, I'll like listen to Bring Me album, man. I was like, what the fuck? That sounds like RJ. And I love hearing when people I've been following for years, and I hear their work in other people's work that I'm a fan of, and I'm just like, that's so trippy. Is there any other metal bands particularly, or like alternative metal bands that you would love to work with in the future and try to combine bridge those worlds?
Yeah, I mean, like Chelsea Grin's one of my favorite bands of all time. I love Body Snatcher. I've been getting into the past couple of years.
Yeah, they're pissed as that's the how would you can you do like a pissed as fuck loop? Like you could probably pull
the one I posted today on TikTok is probably like the most distorted crazy thing I've posted. So
I didn't check it before this. I'm a
no, it's cool. I'll maybe check it later. But yeah, after. It's kind of it's a bit dividing. Some people are like, this is crazy, like not good, and then some people are like, oh, this is hard, but I do. I mean, I love deathcore. Like that's probably my favorite genre, like to listen to. I just think that like the kind of music, just coming from the placement perspective, it's like being mindful of like what is going to connect with a broader audience, and also being able to be creative within that, and yeah, so like I mean, I'd love to work with like deathcore bands and artists and stuff. Like for my own artistry, I don't think that's kind of like the sound I'm trying to go for particularly, even though like I do think it would be cool, like as things develop, doing projects where like maybe in a song there's a part where it does like a crazy breakdown thing, and then, like like deathcore vocalists, and then it goes into like like Yeet on the verse or something,
Yeet on the verse. That's hard as fuck, dude. So. Deathcore breakdown with Yeet coming in on the verse. So. I would love. That's the thing. I would love to see stuff like one of my favorite things that happened was Lil Uzi Vert's album, which I would go through and I'd be like, this is so sick. CS was its own thing. That was fun. Thank you, Little Uzi Vert. I had loved watching that, you know. And it's but hearing the combos of like he had Bring Me On the record. He had Pale Dusk. I don't know if you listen to Pale Dusk much.
Mhm.
But they're also they're definitely a metal band, but they're very like glitchy hyper pop esque. They're from Japan, and they mix in those elements with like very heavy modern metal and breakdowns and screaming and all that. And yeah, hearing combos like that is just it excites me as a metal fan because like metal needs to evolve. It doesn't all have to be just that, right? But evolving in a way where it can stay relevant. And I love the idea of like because there's that genre fluidity happening, and you can have like a big pop star do something somehow with someone like from the deathcore scene, and even though these are like opposite musical worlds, there's gonna be eventually an easier and easier bridge for those things and those collaborations to happen more and more over the years. And then it's just kids growing up. It's not like, oh, I'm, the like everyone in my time, yeah, I'm the weird metal kid. No, it's just like, oh,
Right.
I listened to fucking, Jay Beebs and Ariana Grande and Yeet, and I also, I threw down some Slipknot earlier, some fucking, Body Snatcher, some Soljarta. Like that's cool. That's what I want to see, music turn into a few years, man. That would be so sick.
I mean, I would love to just see like just metal and heavier stuff get more into the mainstream culture. Like that would, I
Yeah.
just think that would be so cool,
Hell yeah, man.
But
Well, dude, is there any advice you would give for whether it's content creators, beat makers, producers out there, maybe watching, from things you've learned throughout the years to help them? I don't know whether they're trying to produce, get placements, or whether they're just literally trying to make cool short content. Like, because you kind of are a man of multiple trades. Like, any advice you'd give all these people of how to like get shit done and actually get to that crazy, fucking end goal?
I think it really I just finished reading this book, Atomic Habits, that I think puts it really well. There's this thing where it's like you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems, and where it's like I like set a good work ethic for myself just because of like years of me kind of like making music when I feel like it, and like doing stuff when I feel like the creativity and stuff like that. And years later I'm haven't made much progress, and I'm like I am way far off from where I want to be.
Right.
And then I'm like, you know what, let me like start giving myself challenges. So I'll do like, okay, let me make like one beat a day. And then it would turn into like, oh, like, and then when I started making loops, it's like maybe make a few beat loops a day. And then it was like, oh, how many loops can I make in one day? I think one day I made 20 loops in one day.
Hell
And they
yeah.
weren't all great quality, but I was like, okay, like,
Mhm.
like I can like really like, set myself. I'm like, up until this hour, I'm sitting here, I'm putting my phone over there and I'm making music. Once I'm done with something, move on to the next, move on to the next, and just get really good at making new ideas. That was kind of my thing. It was like, I want to just get really good at like making ideas and not be precious about stuff. So like, I think like having kind of like a perspective of like, like just putting in time into it and like just keep doing it and like have good work ethic and then put yourself out there, like I think if I put myself, I really like fed off of like virality and kind of like the dopamine rush that the initial virality gave is what encouraged me to keep doing it. But it's like, I try to tell people, I'm like, if you have good stuff that you want to share with the people, it's just a matter of your consistency and like just putting it out there, and it's like
Yeah.
people get discouraged when it's not like hitting the wall, but like nothing's gonna stick unless you're throwing it at the
Yeah.
wall. So
I love how you said
um
don't be precious. That's such an important, underthought for a lot of people because musicians, content creators are always like, has to be this exact perfect thing that I
yeah.
put out and it has to be exactly like this instead of just like, you got an idea, go, just do the thing. And sometimes it'll fucking, right, flop, do awful. And sometimes it'll be the biggest thing ever. And it doesn't matter if you spent 20 years making it or like 2 days. Like it's just,
Well, that's one thing I see people, they'll have like a song that I guess they really want to do well and they'll like rinse content for it and then the content just doesn't do well and like
yeah,
if it were me I'd be like this just isn't the one. Let me, cut
yeah,
my losses and make new stuff. For me, if the first video I do of something doesn't do well, I don't post it ever again. It's like
yeah.
it's everything only gets one chance for me. I know, that may be a little strict, but like I
Mhm.
think that like to me, that's a smart way of doing it. And that's why I think for me, doing loops is so good because it takes me like 20 minutes, 30 minutes to make a loop. So I'm
Yeah,
not spending hours on this thing first, then posting it and then being like, oh man, like nobody cares about it. I wasted all this time. It's like,
yeah.
oh, like here I've got, And like at the end of the day, like even the stuff that doesn't do well, I send out to other people. Sometimes it's gotten things have gotten placed in records that, you know, the video didn't do well, but I sent it to someone, they
Right.
made a beat with it, and then an artist got on it, and you know, it's
Sick.
repurposed, you know. So I think like uh yeah, that you know, that's basically like I guess how I would look at it, you know.
Awesome. Well, dude, RJ, dude, chat. Can we get some claps again? RJ, right here. I'm just gonna keep the sample. This a lobster, dude, fucking absolutely killing it, dude. And again, I mean, more importantly, just badass producer. Again, it's thank you for coming on the show, and like, I love having people, especially in the very modern age of things, to come on and share like their insights of how they're doing stuff, because it's the way music scene's going, the content scene is going, like all of it. And I love seeing what people like you are doing to make, you know, the guitar scene bigger, the producer scene bigger. And I mean, again, inadvertently, even if it's not your goal, you make the metal scene bigger by what you're doing. And thank you for that. I love that.
Cool.
So, dude, yeah, thank you for coming on the show. And yeah, dude, don't be shy. Always feel free to hit up in the DMs. And if you ever want to do some fun loop shit, let me know, dude. I can only make dumb noises though, so I don't
Yeah,
know.
that I love dumb noises. Yeah.
Let's go, dude. Let's go. Awesome, dude.
Thanks for
RJ,
having me, bro.
everyone, show the homie the love. Check him out. Check out his track Lobster, and check out his whole discography. And go. You know, if you want some fucking badass loops, hit the homie up.
Yes,
Right,
sir.
right here.
Yes, sir.
Dude, thank you so much for coming on the show. I appreciate it, dude.
Thank you, bro. Thanks for having me.
Have a good one, dude. See ya.